America has spawned many diverse denominations, so today I'm going to tell you about one that started right here in California, Calvary Chapel. As an historian, it's very important that we have honest and objective viewpoints while researching, so I'm going to tell you a bit of the history and then what some of the journal articles are saying in scholarly sources. So first off, what is Calvary Chapel? Calvary Chapel is a non-denomination of churches that are loosely associated but not held to one standard through a church government. And it was started back in 1965 when a man named Chuck Smith was a pastor of a church, but he saw the culture changing, but not the church adapting to this culture change. So he decided to not follow the normal advice of his church government, and he just walked down to the beach in Southern California, and he saw some barefoot hippies and was like talking to them about Jesus. And the hippies were blown away by this man who was willing to come to them where they were and speak simple terms of the gospel and just break it down for them. And so they started this thing called Maranatha House in Southern California, and it grew and grew, and soon every Wednesday and Sunday there were thousands of people who were just excited to spend 3 hours studying God's Word in simple expositional preaching. And this movement kind of was similar to the 19th century Methodist revivals, where there was thousands of people outside on the beach, hands raised, a lot of singing. And Chuck Smith and his assistant, Looney Frisbee, were leading these people who would never be normally found inside of church. They would have worship in swimsuits, and they just cared about the gospel. And so from there, Calvary grew. Now there's over 800 Calvary chapels in the country and in the world. And one of the core tenets of Calvary Chapel is they don't care about deep doctrine as much as they care about expositional preaching. So you'll never hear a topic sermon in a Calvary Chapel. You'll only hear them open the Bible and every week go verse by verse, line by line, chapter by chapter until they finish an entire book. It's also, they're not seminary based. Whereas most churches will make their pastors go to education and get a formal certificate to preach, Chuck Smith actually says the opposite. He believes that fellow seminarians become the person's peer group rather than the congregation, and this creates a distance that is difficult to bridge. And so Chuck Smith advocated that God does not call the qualified, but he qualifies the called. And it's important for you to have evidence of the Spirit, and then you're able to become a church leader. And they are taught through discipleship. So he kind of based his discipleship program off Jesus, where he had 12 disciples that he taught, spent a lot of time with. It's officially called the Moses Discipleship Plan. And so a church pastor will find people below him and disciple them and just teach them one-on-one. And this is supposed to keep them connected to the congregation and make their teaching a lot more relevant. Also, there are no members in a Calvary Chapel. So Calvary believes you should be able to worship where you want, with who you want. And so you don't have to be a member to worship there, and they don't have membership at all. Also, now that there's over 1,800 Calvaries, you can kind of see the gamut. Some will sing hymns, even though in the original 1965 revivals it was mostly rock bands. But some will do modern songs as well. But the main thing is you can come as you are, so people will show up dressed up nicely or in slacks and t-shirts, and they'll be accepted. So nowadays they still have some revivals. You'll see Southern California preachers like Greg Laurie becoming popular, and they stick to their roots of Jesus first, Jesus famous, and teach them the simple Bible from cover to cover. And that's Calvary Chapel in a nutshell.